Good evening. I'm out here in the beautiful coastal town called Brighton in southern England. Just down here for the weekend, seeing some friends. And I've spent most of the day chilling out. It was a lovely day. Still a bit chilly. I think that's why everyone's got their jackets on. But nevertheless, it is a beautiful day. You can see people just chilling, and just a nice energy and a nice feel to the place. Very nice. But I've just got a question to ask. When you hear or see the word slavery, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? Yep. Black people. The slaves in slavery in America. The black slaves. And all the history that goes on with it. Chained and families ripped apart and sold like cattle. We all know about history. I think we know the history of slavery. But what if I was to tell you that white people were slaves before? So this is where this book comes in. I recommend you all read it. And it's an interesting book about white people, well, the British made their own people slaves. The British shipped over basically the white people in the society who they never wanted. We all had the story about all the crooks getting shipped to Australia and blah blah blah, but back in the 1600s, the British, when Britain was getting very overpopulated, the economy was failing, crime was going up, people didn't have any jobs, people with illnesses and stuff like that. They've literally shipped them over to America, and they were made to slave in American farms. That was the biggest industry, agriculture, at the time. So it's a very good book. I've only got into the first 3 or 4 chapters, but I thought I'd just make I was driving back and I had this book in my bag, so I thought I'd make a video about it, a little chat, and obviously have a little read while I'm here. But as you say, it's the forgotten history of Britain's white slaves in America, and it is a strong depicting tale. But I think things like this are the cause of racism, because like, white people don't know the history is why so many races, and say black people as well, that a lot of cultures don't know their real history or the whole story. That white people, well, I don't say white people, I don't mean that, but people that are racist, it will continue, because an example of white people, they've never heard of any oppression in their lives. They've always been the superior race. So that's why a lot of white people are ignorant, because racism is just basically ignorant. I'm not hating or stumping my feet and black power. I'm just basically trying to be as trying to give a good rhetoric to the logic behind this, and my theory is, well, my personal theory is that racism is ignorance, and it's always going to continue. In this case, if white people don't know their true history, because white people don't think they have suffered to slavery. And I remember being at school as a young kid, in history, we used to always have a subject, a project on slavery every single year for my whole indoctrination of school. Every single year at school, there wasn't many black people in my school where I was brought up in Glasgow, Scotland. And it wasn't pleasant that the only thing that I was ever taught about towards people of my colour was slavery. And the only thing white people actually learned about black people was slavery, and then maybe Martin Luther King. Struggle. There was no other paradigm to it. It's just always black people struggling, which has not always been the case, because yeah, they had the civil rights movement back in the 60s, and there was obviously slavery back in the 1700s and stuff, and it has obviously left a massive footprint in black culture and black history, and it does affect us to this day. A lot of black people do have a chip on their shoulder, but it does come back to education and indoctrination. I used to watch Mississippi Burning at school. We used to watch Mississippi Burning, and basically you'd hear, and the thing is in school that the lectures or what do you used to call it at school? Periods, used to call it, like an hour, 50 minutes or something. You don't ever get like half an hour of the film at the start of Mississippi Burning. I can't remember the whole finish, how it finished and all that. I'm sure it's the Gene Hackman movie. I can't remember the whole end, but probably ends in a good note, I can't remember. But basically you only ever got to see the start, and it was just basically white people chasing black people getting lynched, burned, houses burned down, Ku Klux Klan, and that leaves a... I mean, we never ever got to the end of the movie. We come back a week later and then we start the film again at the start. It's just madness. And then next year you watch the same... It was always Mississippi Burning. And it just leaves a subconscious that the white race is superior. And again, I repeat, I'm not banging on black power and I hate white people. I'm just trying to make a point that racism is always going to exist in this paradigm, this current paradigm, because the way we are not educated and the way white people are not educated about their future, how the British kept white people as slaves, and then that actually led on to then getting black people. So the white people were the first slaves. I'm not saying it's a competition here, but the white people were slaved by the Brits, sold to American farmers to farm, because that was the biggest industry, agriculture, as I said before, and there was suffering and torturing and tied up and all the same things that happened to the black race, but obviously not on a massive scale. But you ask it, it's not an easy answer, but then you ask, why is it not taught at school? Why does... I ask white people all the time. I said on my Twitter, did you know there was white slaves? And I made a lot of tweets about it, and the amount of replies I got was unbelievable. White people saying, thanks, I never knew that. I was actually getting thanked a lot. I never knew that we were slaves and blah blah. But like, as long as you're willing to learn, it's not a bad thing, but it's good to know. And then there's no way that if white people learned that they were enslaved as well and tortured and had brutal upbringing and made to slave out in fields and farm and get whipped and all that, and I'm sure the outlook will be different to black people if you're taught that at a young age, taught that as a baby in school, as a kid, sorry. But we're not. We're just taught black people were pieces of shit. They were whipped, chained up, slaved, and then the civil rights movement. Then Martin Luther King had a dream. That's it. That's our history. And there is the white person's history is, well, British history in America, or we were always a superior race. They made World War II and we overcame the Nazis. We were heroic. And that just leaves a footprint. I'm not saying that's currently, it's not a bad thing in these things that happen, but tell the full picture. That's all I'm saying. And I've always said racism's always going to be here. Like, I play professional football, and there's always this big debate about racism. And I'm saying, it's always going to be here. Move on. You know what I mean? Deal with it when it comes, but don't think anything's going to change, because if we don't learn, if I still taught at school that there's superior races to other races, then there's always going to be ignorance. And if you to define racism in one word, it would be ignorance. So that was just my little piece on that, and I'm going to go back to enjoying this beautiful day in Brighton. Peace out.